170 private jets left Dubai in a single week. Read that again.
Not charter evacuations, not Emirates Airlines repatriation routes, private jets. The kind of aircraft that costs $10,000 an hour to operate. The kind that does not appear on public flight tracking databases unless you know exactly where to look. The kind that wealthy people use when they are not traveling, when they are leaving. 170 of them in 7 days. That number does not happen by accident. It does not happen because of scheduling conflicts or business meetings or family vacations. It happens when the people who own private jets, the 81,200 millionaires, the 237 centimillionaires, the 20 billionaires who made Dubai the most densely wealthy city on earth, make a decision at the same time. The decision is always the same. The calculation changed. This is not a story about jets. Jets are just the most visible symptom of something far more consequential happening beneath the surface of a city that built its entire identity on the promise that this exact moment would never arrive. Before you understand what 170 departing jets mean, you have to understand what a private jet is in the context of Dubai. A private jet is not transportation. Not for the class of person who owns one in Dubai. Commercial airlines are transportation. A private jet is a financial instrument with wings. It is the physical manifestation of the most important thing that mobile capital requires: the ability to exit instantly, completely, and without a trace. The 81,200 millionaires who lived in Dubai as of early 2026 did not arrive by accident. They were recruited, incentivized, visa processed, and tax exempted into the city by one of the most sophisticated wealth attraction programs ever constructed by a government. The Golden Visa, the 100% foreign ownership rules, the zero personal income tax, the DIFC legal framework that mirrored London. All of it was designed to answer one question that every wealthy person asks before they move anywhere. What happens if I need to leave quickly? Dubai's answer for 40 years was nothing happens. You leave. No capital controls, no exit taxes, no government interference. The money that arrived in Dubai arrived because Dubai had the most credible answer to that question of any city in the region. You can always leave. That was not a flaw in the system. That was the system. 170 private jets in 1 week is what it looks like when the system runs in reverse. Here is what the flight tracking data actually shows. In the 7 days following February 28, 2026, private aviation departures from Dubai World Central, Al Maktoum International Airport, the facility that handles the majority of private and ultra-high net worth aviation in the UAE, spiked at a level that aviation analysts described as historically anomalous. The destinations tell the story more precisely than the volume. London Luton and Farnborough, the two airports that handle the majority of private aviation into the UK for high net worth individuals. Geneva, Zurich, Singapore Seletar, Nassau in the Bahamas, Malta, Limassol in Cyprus, Lisbon. These are not random endpoints. These are the 7 cities that consistently appear at the top of every wealth migration analysis published in the last decade. These are the cities that compete with Dubai for the same mobile capital that Dubai spent 40 years attracting. The jets were not going on vacation. Vacation jets go to the Maldives, to the Greek islands, to Aspen in February. They were going to the cities that have financial infrastructure, legal frameworks, and residency programs capable of absorbing the assets that were departing Dubai on those aircraft. They were going to Dubai's competitors. One aviation logistics source with direct visibility into WAY private terminal operations described the week as unlike anything seen since the early days of COVID in March 2020. The difference, the source noted, was directional. In March 2020, the jets were also leaving, but they were going home. In March 2026, they were not going home. They were going somewhere new. That distinction is the entire story. Not everyone who left was leaving permanently. That must be said clearly. Some were doing what wealthy people always do during periods of uncertainty, getting their families to safety while they assessed the situation. Some were repatriating foreign nationals who had always planned to return to their home countries eventually and simply found the eventual arriving faster than expected. But some were leaving in a different way, the way that leaves a forwarding address. The profile of Dubai's ultra-wealthy resident population in early 2026 was specific. Russians who had arrived after the 2022 Ukraine invasion, bringing assets that could not safely stay in Russia and could not safely go to Europe due to sanctions. They needed a jurisdiction that was neutral, functional, and connected. Dubai was the answer from 2022 until February 28, 2026. Ukrainian business figures who had moved assets and families into Dubai for the same reason: proximity without exposure, safety without isolation. Wealthy Iranian diaspora families who had been parking capital in Dubai for decades, close enough to maintain business connections to Iran, far enough to survive whatever came next. Indian ultra-high net worth individuals for whom Dubai had become the default international address, close enough to fly home for a weekend, far enough to maintain global financial positioning. British nationals, 300,000 of them in the UAE, the single largest expatriate community in the country, the demographic that the British Foreign Secretary publicly activated emergency support systems for within 48 hours of the first strikes. These are not interchangeable people. They have different risk tolerances, different asset profiles, different home countries with different options for return. But they share one characteristic that is commercially decisive for Dubai. They are all mobile. Every single one of them came to Dubai because they had the option to be somewhere else, and they calculated that Dubai was better. 170 jets in 1 week means 170 of them updated the calculation. Here is something that the flight tracking data cannot show you. The most important departures from Dubai in the week of February 28th were not the private jets. They were the wire transfers. Private jets carry people and luggage. Wire transfers carry wealth. And wire transfers move at the speed of a keystroke, days, sometimes weeks before a physical departure. The jets are the visible confirmation of a decision that was already made, in many cases before the first missile had been intercepted. A managing director at a Dubai-based family office, the kind of entity that manages the consolidated wealth of a single ultra-high net worth family across multiple asset classes and jurisdictions, described the sequence of events in the days following February 28 in terms that were precise and unsentimental. First came the calls from principals asking about liquidity positions. Then came the instructions to reduce Dubai concentrated real estate exposure, where exits could be executed without catastrophic price concessions. Then came the review of which jurisdictions had the most absorption capacity for the assets being repositioned. Then, finally, came the travel arrangements. The jets were last. The money had already moved. This sequencing matters enormously for understanding what 170 private jet departures actually represent as an economic signal. In wealth migration, physical departure is a lagging indicator. The decision to leave precedes the departure by days or weeks. The asset repositioning precedes the departure by weeks or months. The jet is the period at the end of a sentence that began being written the moment the first missile appeared on a radar screen over the Arabian Gulf. What this means is that the departure of 170 jets does not represent 170 decisions made in a single week. It represents 170 decisions reaching their final physical execution in a single week. The decisions themselves were made earlier. Some of them may have been made years earlier. Contingency plans sitting in family office files labeled with phrases like Gulf escalation scenario and activated the moment the scenario became reality. The UAE government's response to the events of February 28 has been managed with the precision that authoritarian efficiency makes possible and democratic accountability makes impossible. The official narrative is consistent, controlled, and not entirely wrong. The air defense systems performed. The physical damage was contained. The economy is resilient. Business continues. The way is open. The airports are operational. The stock exchanges have reopened. Come back. Come invest. The promise holds. Every element of that narrative is technically accurate. The air defense systems did perform remarkably. The physical damage was contained relative to what could have been. The airports are operational. The exchanges have reopened. What the official narrative cannot address, what no government in Dubai's position could address without causing the exact outcome it is trying to prevent, is the psychological infrastructure. You cannot issue a press release that repairs confidence. You cannot hold a business summit that undoes the image of smoke rising from the Burj Al Arab. You cannot schedule a real estate expo that erases the memory of 4 million residents spending a night in parking garages because the safest city on earth had no public bomb shelters. The way government knows what 170 private jets mean. The Dubai Land Department watches real estate transaction volumes in near real time. The Central Bank of the UAE monitors capital flows with instruments sophisticated enough to detect meaningful deviations from baseline patterns within days of their occurrence. They know they are managing the information because managing the information is, at this moment, the only tool available. The alternative, acknowledging the scale of capital uncertainty publicly, would accelerate the very process they are trying to slow. This is not cynical. This is crisis management. Every government in the world does it. The question is whether the management is sufficient to change the underlying dynamics. And the underlying dynamics are not determined by press releases. They are determined by calculations made in family offices and hedge fund risk departments and the back rooms of wealth management firms on 4 continents, 3,000 miles southeast of Dubai, in a city-state that shares more DNA with Dubai than either would comfortably acknowledge. The phones have been ringing. Singapore has spent the last 15 years positioning itself as Dubai's most credible alternative. Same tax efficiency, same English common law framework, same world-class infrastructure, same obsessive commitment to the perception of safety and stability. Different geography, different neighborhood. A neighborhood where the nearest active military conflict is measured in thousands of miles rather than hundreds. Singapore has spent the last 15 years positioning itself as Dubai's most credible alternative. Same tax efficiency, same English common law framework, same world-class infrastructure, Same obsessive commitment to the perception of safety and stability. Different geography. Different neighborhood. A neighborhood where the nearest active military conflict is measured in thousands of miles rather than hundreds. In the week following February 28, 2026, Singapore's Economic Development Board, the agency responsible for attracting foreign business and investment, received an inflow of inquiries that one senior official described as the highest single-week volume in recent memory. Family offices, hedge fund administrators, wealth management firms with Dubai-domiciled clients asking about the mechanics of Singapore permanent residency for high-net-worth individuals. Real estate agencies with listings for the kind of luxury residential properties that appeal to the ultra-wealthy. Zurich was also answering the phone. Geneva, London, despite its own wealth exodus of recent years, found itself fielding calls from Dubai-based British nationals reconsidering whether the tax savings were worth what had just happened. Lisbon's non-habitual resident program, which had been attracting wealthy Europeans for years, suddenly found itself fielding inquiries from people who had never previously considered Portugal as a financial address. This is how the geography of global wealth shifts. Not in dramatic announcements, not in visible ceremonies, in phone calls, in emails, in meetings between advisors and clients that begin with the words, "Just so we have the options mapped out, what would it look like if we needed to move?" Most of those conversations will not result in moves. Most of the 81,200 millionaires who called Dubai home on February 27th will still call Dubai home in 12 months. The calculation for most of them has changed, but not enough to overcome the friction of relocating an established life. The schools, the staff, the business connections, the routines, these things have weight. They resist relocation. But some will move, and in the arithmetic of mobile capital, some is a number with catastrophic commercial implications. Real estate is where cities cannot lie. Equities can be managed. Press releases can shape narratives. Government statements can buy time. But the real estate transaction record is a ledger that cannot be edited. When wealthy people decide to leave a city, the real estate market tells you, not immediately, because real estate moves slowly, but honestly, because real estate has no incentive to maintain a fiction. The Dubai Land Department transaction data for the weeks following February 28th showed a pattern that real estate analysts described as a bifurcation. On one side, distressed sellers, owners of investment properties who wanted to exit positions and were willing to accept price concessions to do it quickly. On the other side, a sharp reduction in new buyer inquiries from the international markets that had been driving Dubai's pre-strike real estate acceleration. The buyers who had been circling Palm Jumeirah penthouses and downtown Dubai towers in late February, the Indian entrepreneurs, the European executives, the Gulf families looking to diversify into UAE real estate, went quiet. Not permanently, not all of them. But the inquiry volume dropped in a way that real estate agents with institutional memory compared to the early weeks of COVID. The phone stops ringing, not because the properties have become less beautiful, because the calculation has changed. And here is the layer beneath the transaction data that is more important than the transactions themselves. A significant portion of Dubai's premium real estate was already functionally empty before February 28th. The safety deposit boxes in the sky, purchased by foreign investors as stores of value, held as financial instruments rather than homes, occasionally rented on short-term platforms but never truly occupied. The vacancy rate in certain premium developments was estimated at 20 to 40%. Those empty properties now exist in a changed market. The owner in London or Moscow or Mumbai who bought a Palm Jumeirah apartment in 2021 as a hedge against instability at home is now looking at an asset in a city that has had its own instability event. The hedge has acquired the risk it was supposed to hedge against. The calculation for holding that property, already marginal for many owners given the management costs and transaction friction, has shifted. Not all of them will sell. Most won't. But the marginal sellers, the ones for whom the calculation was already borderline, have a new input in their model. And marginal sellers, in a market that is simultaneously losing new buyer demand, create price pressure. And price pressure, in a real estate market that has been a core component of Dubai's wealth attraction pitch, creates a narrative problem that no amount of government communication can contain. Everyone is watching the real estate. Everyone is watching the stock exchanges. Everyone is watching the airline routes and the hotel occupancy rates and the visible, measurable metrics of Dubai's economic health. Nobody is watching the family offices. There are 1,289 family-related entities registered in the Dubai International Financial Center as of late 2025. Family offices are the least visible and most consequential actors in the geography of global wealth. They manage the consolidated financial lives of ultra-high net worth families, the centimillionaires and billionaires who represent the apex of Dubai's wealth pyramid. They make decisions slowly, deliberately, and without announcing them. They are also the entities most likely to have had pre-prepared contingency plans for exactly the scenario that materialized on February 28th. A family office does not need to announce a relocation. It needs to file paperwork in a new jurisdiction, establish banking relationships, and update the registered address on a set of holding companies. None of that is visible. None of that produces footage. All of it is consequential. The family office is the unit that, when it moves, everything else follows. The private banking relationship moves with it. The investment management mandate moves with it. The real estate advisory relationship moves with it. In some cases, the family's philanthropic vehicles, their art collections, their operating businesses, all of it migrates along the gravity of the family office decision. 1,289 family-related entities in the DIFC. If 5% of them initiate relocation planning in the 12 months following February 28th, not complete relocations, planning, the downstream commercial impact touches every professional services sector in Dubai. The law firms, the accounting practices, the private banks, the luxury residential brokerages, the schools that educate the children of the principals, the restaurants that depend on the density of ultra-wealthy residents to justify their pricing and their existence. This is the domino that moves silently. This is the domino that, when it falls, looks from the outside like a city that simply got quieter. A few fewer Ferraris on Sheikh Zayed Road. A few more empty tables at the restaurants that charge what only millionaires can afford. A few fewer bidders at the prime real estate auctions. And then, gradually, not. History has a template for what happens to cities that lose the promise. Beirut, 1975. The Lebanese Civil War did not destroy Beirut's financial sector in a day. It destroyed it across a decade. The banks did not close simultaneously. They closed one at a time as the calculation for each individual institution shifted past the point where staying made sense. The last bank to leave was the last domino. By then, the city that had been the Paris of the Middle East was something else entirely. Detroit is a different kind of story, but the same kind of mathematics. Detroit did not lose its population overnight. It lost it across 40 years, one family at a time, as each departing household made the next household's departure slightly more rational. At peak, Detroit had 1.8 million people. It currently has approximately 620,000. The decline was so gradual that no single year looked catastrophic. The catastrophe was the aggregate of thousands of individual calculations that each made sense. Johannesburg's northern suburbs in the 1990s. Hong Kong after 2020. Each of these cities experienced the same phenomenon, a confidence event, followed by a repricing, followed by a gradual but accelerating reorientation of mobile capital toward alternatives. Dubai is not Detroit. Dubai is not Johannesburg. Dubai is not Beirut. The structural differences are real, and they matter. The way government has resources, competence, and strategic options that none of those cities possessed at their moments of inflection. But the mathematics of mobile capital do not respect structural differences. They respect the calculation. And the calculation, for the first time in 40 years of Dubai's existence, now includes a variable it never previously contained. Risk. 170 private jets. 1 week. The number that started this story. By the time you finish watching this, some of those jets will have returned. Their owners will have assessed the situation, made calls, consulted advisors, reviewed the contingency plans, and decided that Dubai still makes more sense than the alternative. That is not a small thing. It means the calculation, for those specific individuals, still resolves in Dubai's favor. The city should want those jets back. It needs them back. But some of those jets will not return. Their owners have made a different calculation. The assets are already repositioning. The family office is